Formula One was weird in the 1970s. Tyrrell debuted a six-wheeled car, humans would double as both the spectators and the guardrail, and there was this one time where Hans Heyer made a single start in Formula One. Well, kind of. To tell this story, we must first travel to the year 1977, a time where you didn't even need a super license to participate in a race. It was a year that saw the dawn of ground effect cars, as well as the start of a small team that would go on to compete in Formula One for years to come. Nope, not that team. Yeah, that team. Team ATS had purchased a car from Penske Racing in the mid-1977 season, and had tabbed Frenchman Jean-Pierre Jarier to drive. He was a talented driver, no doubt, but not all drivers felt so positively about him.
He's got a mental age of 10 in the first place.
Team ATS had set up their base of operations in Germany, and seeing that it was their home race that weekend at Hockenheim, they wanted to enter a second car for that race. This is when Hans Heyer comes in. Now, before we begin, I'd like to state that Heyer was no slouch behind the wheel, as he had found success in touring in sports cars, winning many races and titles, and by the mid-1970s, had developed into one of the best endurance racers in Europe. This culminated with him winning the 1975 and 1976 German racing championships with Zach Speed Ford. But none of the series he competed in were open-wheel cars, were they? Well, he did have some open-wheel experience. He made 2 Formula 2 attempts in 1976, both at his home track of Hockenheim, and scored a 7th place finish in the only race he managed to qualify for. And yeah, that's it. The only open-wheel experience he had been given prior to his F1 debut. What could go wrong with that? And, to top it off, his team, ATS, was, well, how do I put this?
It's a shitbox!
Yeah, they were garbage. Now for context, Penske had sold his operation to ATS. Penske was a decent car at the time, but was by no means the fastest. Qualifying came around to determine who would make the race, and wait, there were cars that could actually go home? Well, in those times, it was common for more than the allotted number of cars to show up for race day. Therefore, the slowest competitors would be sent home a day early. Hockenheim only allowed for 24 entrants that year to take part in the race. 30 drivers had entered into the race, meaning that 6 would be sent home early. Our guy, Hans Heyer, needed to finish inside the top 24, but he finished 27th instead. Honestly, considering it was his first time in a Formula One car, not bad. He even beat this guy named Emerson Fittipaldi, so he can now officially say he outqualified a champion, who, albeit was driving a Copper Suker for his family team, and let's just say the Copper Suker was, well...
It's a shitbox!
Heyer was the 3rd reserve driver. This means that essentially, if a driver who qualifies ahead pulls out before the start of a race, a reserve driver will be promoted from the list of drivers who failed to qualify to replace the driver that dropped out. The first reserve driver, Patrick Neve, his car wasn't properly prepared and he dropped out, and the second reserve driver's engine hand grenaded, meaning that Hans Heyer was promoted to the first reserve qualifier. However, just before the race, it became apparent that no one else was backing out, meaning that Heyer would earn a DNQ, did not qualified, at his home race. Hans didn't want that. He wanted to say that he took part in a Formula One race, and decided that he had already come so far that he might as well just take part in the event. At the start of the race, Alan Jones and Clay Regazzoni both collided with each other, putting them both out of the race. In the ensuing chaos, Hans saw his chance and took it. He slipped out of the pits and onto the track without anyone noticing. Now, the reason he was able to do this was because he had grown up around the circuit and had become buddies with all the track marshals, which might have contributed to them accidentally letting him out onto the circuit amid the confusion. As the race started, everyone failed to notice the extra Penske at the back of the grid. Heyer actually had a decent start to the race, and was running 9 laps at a decent pace, with not a single person seeming to notice the bright orange car that was lapping at the rear of the field. That was until he had a gear linkage failure and was forced to retire, scoring a DNF, did not finish. It was at this point that the officials started to get wind of the fishy situation and that Heyer shouldn't have been in the race to begin with. So, he was promptly disqualified from the race, making him the only driver who DNQ'd, DNF'd, and was disqualified from an event. Man, Grosjean and Maldonado are in shambles right now. Heyer was subsequently banned for the next 5 races. Maybe then he would come back stronger and score some great results. But he didn't. For him, one Grand Prix was enough. He had proven what he had needed to prove. What that was exactly, I'm not too sure. I guess he just wanted a taste of the Grand Prix life. He'd go back to sports car racing, where he'd win prestigious races like the Spa 24 Hours and the Sebring 12 Hours, but unfortunately, he never found success at the prestigious Le Mans, as in his 14 attempts, he failed to finish every single one, thus earning him the title of the driver with the most starts without finishing a race at Le Mans. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
Fahrdienst, Bremspunkt 100 Meter, Geschwindigkeit in dieser Rechtskurve 200 Kilometer pro Stunde. Sachskurve wird genommen mit etwa 115 km/h. Das ist die langsamste Kurve des Autodroms.